Gold rush, railroads, and a sense of adventure weren't what really built the Wild West. The contribution of these factors was only limited to drawing people to the frontier. The Wild West didn't become civilized until women arrived, and no, we're not talking about the wives and mothers of settlers. We're talking about the madams, the ladies of the lines, and the soiled doves who used the world's oldest profession to transform lawless camps into actual communities. Here's what life was really like for a woman working in a Wild West brothel. So, yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment below. Last week, someone from Canada said they listen during lunch breaks. Not judging, just wasn't expecting that. All right, Wild West brothels tonight. But wait, are you comfortable? No, really. Check. Pillows, blankets, the whole deal. Where we're going, you'll want to be settled. Your eyes flutter open to darkness. For a moment, panic grips you. Where are you? The thin mattress beneath you isn't your bed. The smell is wrong. Tobacco, whiskey, cheap perfume, and something else. Something human. Then it all comes rushing back. You're in Silver Creek, 1876. In a tiny room above a saloon that now doubles as your workplace and home. The space is hardly bigger than a closet. They call these cribs, just enough room for a narrow bed with a worn-out straw mattress, a small washstand with a chipped porcelain basin, and a three-legged stool that wobbles when you sit on it. Your few possessions are stuffed into a trunk at the foot of the bed. Unlike your cozy bed back home, this mattress crinkles when you move. It's covered in oilcloth to make it easier to clean between clients. Christ, it's cold. The thin blanket does nothing against the mountain chill that seeps through the gaps in the wooden walls. The cold is different here in the Rockies. It cuts right through to your bones. Nothing like back east. You can hear someone coughing in the next room. These walls are so thin you can practically hear people thinking. 3 days you've been here, and already you know that Molly in the next room talks in her sleep, and the girl 2 doors down cries silently every night. Rise and shine, ladies' coffee's hot and the day's wasting. That's Sadie, the madam. Her voice carries through the building like a trumpet. You can picture her already, all 5 feet of her wrapped in a silk robe, her greying hair still in papers, marching down the hall to make sure her girls are up and moving. You glance out the small window. It's not even dawn yet, just a hint of grey on the horizon, but the mines start their shifts early and there's money to be made from men coming off the night shift. Not that you're exactly rolling in cash. 3 days in and you've made just enough to cover your room and board with a few dollars to spare. Martha, you awake in there? Got a gentleman asking for you special like? Sadie's voice is right outside your door now. You sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes. I'm up. Good girl. Wash up and come down, and for God's sake put some rouge on. You look like death warmed over. You can hear her shuffling away, muttering something about green girls and breaking them in right. You're not actually Martha. Your real name is Eleanor Blackwood, but Sadie said Eleanor sounded too proper for this line of work, and customers like simpler names. So Martha, you became the moment you walked through her door, desperate and broke after your husband gambled away everything and then vanished in the night. In your head, you're still screaming, how did I end up here? This is how I die, in a crib, in a mining town. But outwardly, you're calm. You've always been good at keeping your face blank, a skill that's serving you well now. The wash basin water is ice cold, making you gasp as you splash it on your face. No time to heat it up. You've learned that much already. In this business, time is literally money, and hot water is a luxury reserved for paying customers. You pull a brush through your hair and pinch your cheeks hard to bring some colour. The rouge is in a small tin on the washstand, bright red and waxy. You dab some on your lips and cheeks, wincing at how garish it looks in the small cracked mirror. Nothing like the subtle beauty you once prided yourself on. Martha, He ain't gonna wait all day. Sadie's voice again, impatient now. You throw on your work dress, a red satin thing with too much lace and a neckline that makes you flush every time you catch your reflection. 3 days ago, you would have died before wearing something like this. Amazing how quickly necessity changes your standards. Your dress back home wouldn't last a day here. It's funny. I spent so much on those proper dresses and they were basically just wall decoration compared to what I need now. The floorboards creak as you make your way down the narrow stairs. The saloon below is never completely quiet, but at this hour it's subdued. Just a couple of miners nursing drinks at the bar, and the piano player slumped over his keys, snoring softly. And there's your gentleman caller, a big bearded man in dirty work clothes, his face weathered by sun and wind. He's nervously twisting his hat in his hands, and when he sees you, his face breaks into a smile that reveals several missing teeth. "This here's Joe," Sadie says, patting his shoulder. "He's a good one, pays fair and don't cause trouble. Treat him nice, Martha." Joe nods at you, still twisting his hat. "Ma'am," he says, surprisingly soft-spoken for such a big man. Sadie gives you a little push toward the stairs. "Room 3's open. 20 minutes. Not a minute more. I'll be timing." And just like that, your workday has begun before the sun has even cleared the mountains. Not quite what you pictured when you headed west after reading those pamphlets about opportunity and adventure. As you lead Joe up the stairs, you can't help but think about the journey that brought you here. 6 months ago, you were a respectable shopkeeper's wife in Boston. Then Thomas lost the shop in a card game, took what little money you had left, and disappeared. The shame of it drove you west, where no one would know your story. You thought you'd find work as a seamstress or maybe a cook, but in a town with 20 men for every woman, the best-paying job was obvious. And after 3 days of hunger, watching your last coins disappear, you found yourself knocking on Sadie's door. "You ever done this kind of work before, honey?" she'd asked, eyeing you up and down. "No, ma'am," you'd admitted. "Didn't think so." You got that look, like you still believe in fairy tales. She'd sighed then. "Well, you're pretty enough, and men like a fresh face. You can stay, but you follow my rules. No drinking on the job, no stealing from customers, no getting attached. They're not here to save you, they're here to buy what you're selling. Understand?" You'd nodded, not trusting yourself to speak. "Good. Now, first things first, we need to get you proper clothes and teach you how to paint your face. Men don't pay for plain." That first night had been the hardest. You'd cried afterward, silently in your little crib room. But by the second night, you were too tired to cry, and now, on your 4th day, you're already developing the 1,000-yard stare that all the other girls have, looking through the men rather than at them. After Joe leaves, looking considerably happier than when he arrived, you count your earnings. $2, not bad for 20 minutes of uncomfortable work. At this rate, if you're careful with your money, you might be able to save enough to get out of here in a few months. Maybe head to California or up to Oregon, somewhere with more women where you could blend in and start over. But for now, you're here, and Sadie's calling for you again. "Martha got another one for you, and bring down them sheets. Maggie's doing laundry today." You strip the bed and bundle up the sheets. The day has properly begun now, the sun peeking over the mountains, casting long shadows across the muddy main street. From your window you can see the town coming to life. Miners heading to or from their shifts, a wagon delivering goods to the general store, the blacksmith already at his forge. Silver Creek is barely a town, just one main street with a handful of businesses, the saloon, brothel, the general store, a barbershop that doubles as a dentist's office, the blacksmith, and a small hotel for travellers. There's a church being built at the edge of town, but it's been half finished for months. Priorities in a mining town are clear: pleasure before piety. You head downstairs with your bundle of sheets. The saloon is busier now, and you feel eyes following you as you cross to the back door where Maggie is already at work with the washing. "Morning, Martha," she says, not looking up from her scrubbing. "Just drop 'em in the pile there." Maggie's been here longest of all the girls, almost 40, ancient in this profession. Too old for the cribs now, she handles the cleaning, cooking, and occasionally sings when the piano player is sober enough to accompany her. She knows everything about everyone in town, and is your best source of information so far. "How'd you sleep, honey?" she asks, wringing out a sheet with surprisingly strong hands. "Not great," you admit. "It's so noisy here." She laughs at that. "Honey, you think it's noisy now? Wait till payday on Friday. This place'll be jumping till dawn. You'll make good money, though. Any advice for, getting through it?" Maggie finally looks up at you, her face a map of fine lines and hard living. But her eyes are kind. "Find somewhere else in your head to go. That's what I always did. And save every penny you can. This ain't a job you can do forever." You nod, grateful for her honesty if not her optimism. "And watch out for the Barlow brothers," she adds, turning back to her washing. "They come in here acting sweet, but they get mean when they drink. Sadie won't let 'em in anymore, but they still try. Thanks for the warning. Us girls gotta look out for each other. Ain't nobody else gonna do it." That's becoming clear. In just a few days, you've seen how the women here rely on each other, sharing remedies for various ailments, warning about dangerous customers, lending clothes and cosmetics, covering for each other when someone needs a break. It's a strange sisterhood, born of necessity and shared experience. The saloon door bangs open and a man in a suit walks in, clearly not a miner or cowboy. He has a badge pinned to his vest, the sheriff. "Morning, Sheriff Parker," Sadie calls from behind the bar, her voice sweet as honey. "Coffee?" "Not today, Sadie," he says, looking around the room with a disapproving frown. "Just making my rounds. Remind your girls to come in for their health checks tomorrow. Doc Wilson's orders." "Already on my calendar," Sadie assures him. "My girls are clean as whistles. You know that." The sheriff's eyes land on you, and you feel yourself shrink under his gaze. "New girl?" he asks Sadie, though he's still looking at you. "This is Martha, just arrived from back east, and yes, she'll be at the docks tomorrow with the rest." He tips his hat to you, but there's no warmth in the gesture. "Ma'am?" You nod back, not sure what to say. The whole exchange feels strange, like you're a piece of livestock being inspected. After he leaves, you turn to Maggie. "What was that about? Health checks?" "Sheriff makes us all see the doctor once a month," she explains, still scrubbing, checking for diseases and such. "Town law. They fine Sadie if any of us miss it. And if someone has something, then they can't work till they're cleared. That's why Sadie's strict about men using rubbers." She nods toward a drawer behind the bar. "Keeps 'em right there. French letters, she calls 'em. Costs the men extra, but it's that or no business." You feel a flush of relief at this news. You'd been worried about diseases. You'd heard stories about what happened to women in this profession. At least Sadie runs a careful establishment. The day progresses in a blur of men coming and going. Some are kind, some are rough, all are lonely in their way. You stop counting after the fifth, focusing instead on the money accumulating in the small pouch Sadie gave you. "Keep it close," she'd warned. "Men will steal it if they can. I take a 50% cut. That's for room and board and protection. The rest is yours." Protection. That became clear when a drunk cowboy got too rough with one of the girls and Sadie appeared with a shotgun, ending the situation instantly. The man left without argument and Sadie helped the girl, Daisy, clean up her split lip. "No man touches my girls without permission," she'd said firmly. "That's the rule." By midday, you're exhausted but have earned more money than you would in a week of honest work back east. That's the devil's bargain of this life. Good money for work that costs pieces of your soul. You're sitting at the bar, nursing a cup of coffee laced with whiskey. Sadie's recommendation for getting through the day when the door opens again. This time it's a woman who enters, dressed in a plain, practical dress, her hair pulled back severely, a Bible clutched in her hands. The saloon goes quiet. Everyone knows what's coming. "Mrs. Holcomb," Sadie says, her voice noticeably cooler. "What brings you to our establishment? Looking for your husband, perhaps?" Several of the men chuckle at this, but Mrs. Holcomb isn't amused. She draws herself up, looking down her nose at Sadie despite being several inches shorter. "I've come to speak to these poor, lost women," she announces, "to offer them a path to redemption before it's too late." Sadie sighs dramatically. "We've been through this, Evelyn. My girls aren't interested in your redemption. They're working women making an honest living." "Honest?" Mrs. Holcomb nearly chokes on the word. "There is nothing honest about selling one's virtue for money." You find yourself speaking before you can stop yourself. "And what would you have us do instead, ma'am? Work in your husband's mine for pennies a day until our lungs give out, or marry one of these fine gentlemen who just as soon beat us as look at us?" The room goes even quieter. Mrs. Holcomb turns her stern gaze on you. "You're new," she observes. "Not yet completely corrupted. Come with me, child. The Ladies' Aid Society can find you respectable work." You almost laugh. "Doing what? Washing clothes for half what I make here? No thank you, ma'am." Her lips tighten to a thin line. Pride comes before a fall, young woman. "When you're ready to save your immortal soul, you know where to find me." And with that, she turns and marches out, her back rigid with disapproval. Sadie comes over and puts a hand on your shoulder. "Good for you, standing up to old Battle-Axe Holcomb, but watch yourself. Her husband owns half the town, including the bank. Don't make enemies you can't afford." You nod, suddenly aware that you may have spoken too freely. In a town this small, with everyone's fortunes tied to the mines and the men who own them, politics is a dangerous game. As the day wears on, you learn more about the complex social web of Silver Creek. The brothel, while officially scorned by respectable society, is central to the town's economy and social life. Men come not just for the obvious services, but for company, conversation, and a taste of civilization in the rough frontier. You watch Sadie navigate this complicated position with impressive skill, keeping the peace with the sheriff, managing difficult customers, protecting her girls while still running a profitable business. She's harsh at times, but fair, and in a world where women have few options and fewer rights, she's carved out a kingdom of sorts. By late afternoon, you've earned enough to take a break. Your body aches and your painted smile feels like it might crack your face. You retreat to your tiny room, washing up with water you heated on the stove downstairs. There's a small crack in the wall between your room and Molly's. Through it, you can hear her crying softly. You tap gently on the wall. "Molly, you all right?" The crying stops abruptly. "I'm fine," comes her muffled reply. "Just thinking about home." You understand. Every woman here has a story, a before life that led them to this place. Some are running from something, others running towards something. All are surviving the best way they know how. "Where's home?" you ask, settling on your bed, grateful to take weight off your feet. "Kansas," she says after a pause. "Farm country. Drought took our crops 3 years running. Pa couldn't pay the bank." Another pause. "You?" "Boston," you say. "Husband gambled away everything, then left." She makes a sound that might be a laugh. "Men. They make the messes. We clean 'em up. That we do. You agree, lying back on your thin mattress. Outside, the sun is starting to lower behind the mountains. Soon, the night shift will begin. Busier, rowdier, more profitable, but also more dangerous. You should sleep while you can, but your mind is too full. You think about Mrs. Holcomb and her judgment, about Sheriff Parker and his calculating gaze, about Joe with his gentle voice and rough hands, about how quickly your life has changed and how uncertain your future remains. In just one day in Silver Creek, you've made more money than you did in a week of honest work back east. But at what cost? And how long can you do this before it breaks something essential inside you? These questions follow you as you drift into an uneasy sleep, the sounds of the saloon beginning to swell below as night falls on the Wild West, a place where fortune and ruin walk hand in hand, and where women like you carve out survival one client at a time. Your last thought before sleep claims you is that your fancy feather bed back in Boston never felt as necessary as this thin straw mattress does now. The difference between comfort and survival as stark as the line between your old life and the new. The sound of breaking glass jolts you awake. Shouting follows, a man's voice, then Sadie's cutting through like a knife. You break it, you buy it, Mr. Rogers, that's imported crystal, and I'll be adding it to your tab. You blink at the grey light filtering through your window. Morning already, it feels like you just closed your eyes. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache, and your mouth tastes like you've been chewing on old pennies. The bed in your crib is still a shock every morning, narrow as a coffin, the mattress lumpy with straw poking through in spots, nothing like the featherbed you shared with Thomas back in Boston, though honestly, right now it feels like the most comfortable place in the world. Just 5 more minutes. A sharp knock on your door shatters that dream. Rise and shine, Martha breakfast in 10 minutes, and Sadie wants to talk to all the girls. It's Maggie's voice, already moving down the hall to wake the others. You groan and push yourself upright. The tiny room spins for a moment. Too much whiskey in your coffee yesterday. Rookie mistake. You've got to learn to pace yourself, or you'll end up like Lila, who drinks so much she can barely stand by evening. The floorboards are ice cold under your bare feet. Mid-October in the mountains is no joke. Winter's already breathing down your neck. You splash water on your face from the basin, wincing at the cold, and pull on your day dress, a simple brown cotton thing that's seen better days. No need for the fancy stuff until the evening crowd arrives. Downstairs, the saloon is in that strange, bleary state between the last stragglers of the night and the first customers of the day. A man sleeps with his head on one of the tables, snoring softly. The bartender, Jim, is sweeping up broken glass while Sadie tallies numbers in her ledger at the bar. "Morning, sunshine," Sadie says without looking up. "Sleep well?" "Like the dead," you mumble, making your way to the coffee pot on the stove. The rich smell is the only good thing about this hour. Sadie snorts. "You'll get used to the hours, or you won't last." She closes her ledger with a snap. Coffee's fresh. Maggie's making flapjacks in the kitchen. Eat up. Busy day ahead. The kitchen is a warm, steamy sanctuary at the back of the building. Maggie stands at the stove, expertly flipping flapjacks while chatting with 3 other girls already seated at the large wooden table. This is the heart of the house, where the women gather without men, where they can drop the act for a little while. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," says a tall blonde as you enter. "Rough night, new girl?" "Leave her be, Charlotte," Maggie says, sliding a plate of flapjacks onto the table. "We were all green once." Charlotte shrugs, but there's no real malice in her eyes. "Just saying she looks like she got run over by the stagecoach. You pour yourself coffee from the pot on the stove and join them at the table. Thanks for the compliment. Exactly the boost I needed this morning." That gets a laugh from the other girls. The redhead next to Charlotte introduces herself as Daisy, and the quiet brunette is Pearl. "You've seen them around but haven't really talked yet." "Don't mind Charlotte," Daisy says, passing you the molasses. "She's just sore because Judge Wilson's wife caught him leaving here yesterday." Charlotte rolls her eyes. "That man swore he'd leave her. Been promising for a year now." "And you believed him?" Pearl speaks for the first time, her voice surprisingly deep. "Men will say anything between the sheets." "Ain't that the truth?" Maggie agrees, sitting down with her own plate. "First rule of this business, honey, don't believe a word they say, especially the sweet ones." You nod, pouring molasses over your flapjacks. "The food here is surprisingly good. Maggie used to cook for a logging camp before she came to Silver Creek, and she keeps everyone well fed." "So, where'd you come from, Martha?" Daisy asks through a mouthful. "Boston," you say after a moment's hesitation. "No point lying to these women. They can spot a fake story a mile away." "Fancy," Charlotte says. "What brought you all the way out here? Man trouble, I'm guessing." "Husband gambled away everything, then disappeared." The words come easier now, like you're talking about someone else's life. The women nod. They've heard this story before, or ones like it. "Mine drank himself to death," Pearl offers quietly. "Left me with 3 kids and a mountain of debt." "Where are your children now?" you ask, before you can stop yourself. Pearl's face clouds. "With my sister in Denver. I send money when I can." She looks down at her plate. "They think I'm a seamstress." An uncomfortable silence falls. You've touched on something painful, clearly, but before you can apologize, Sadie sweeps into the kitchen. "Ladies, listen up. We've got a big day ahead. The mining company's paying out wages, which means the boys will be flush. I want this place spotless, and I want you all looking your best." She eyes each of you critically. "Martha, you're with me after breakfast. Need to teach you a few things." After the last bite of flapjack, you follow Sadie upstairs to her private quarters at the end of the hall. Unlike the cramped cribs where you all sleep, her room is spacious and well furnished. A large 4-poster bed with actual sheets, a dressing table with a proper mirror, a small sitting area with 2 upholstered chairs, and a bookshelf filled with ledgers and a few novels. "Sit," she orders, pointing to one of the chairs while she rummages in a cabinet. She returns with a wooden box which she sets on the small table between the chairs. "First things first," she says, opening the box to reveal an array of small bottles, tins, and packets. "Protection. This business will kill you quick if you're not careful." She holds up a small rubber item. French letter. Make sure every man wears one. No exceptions, no matter what they offer to pay. Some will try to take it off when you're not looking, so check, and don't let them turn you around so you can't see what they're doing. Next comes a tin of powder. Douche powder. Use it after every customer, no matter what. Mix with warm water. There's always some on the stove downstairs. A small brown bottle. Laudanum. For when the monthly pains come, or if you're having trouble sleeping. But be careful. Too many girls get too fond of it. I've seen it ruin more women than men ever did. Another bottle, smaller and darker. This is for emergencies only. If you think you might be in trouble, late. It'll take care of it, but it'll make you sick as a dog for a few days. Come to me first if you're worried. Don't try to handle it yourself. The business-like way she discusses these intimate matters makes them seem less frightening somehow. This is just another trade with its tools and techniques. Now, she continues, closing the box. Let's talk about the business side. You've got the basics down, 50% to me for room, board, and protection. That's better than most houses. Some take 60 or even 70. You keep track of your own money. I suggest finding a good hiding place, not in your room where customers can find it. Where do you suggest? You ask. She smiles slightly. I keep a safe in my room. You can leave money with me if you want. I keep honest books. She taps one of the ledgers on her shelf. But some girls don't trust anyone. Up to you. You think about it. Sadie seems fair, if hard, and she clearly runs a tight ship. I'd like to use your safe, if that's all right. She nods, seemingly pleased with your decision. Smart girl. Now let's talk about classes of customers. You're new, so you'll get mostly the regular working men. Miners, cowboys, labourers. They're usually quick and not too complicated. As you build a reputation, you might get higher class clients, businessmen, mine owners, even the occasional government man passing through. She leans forward, her voice serious. The higher the class, the more particular they are, but they also pay better and sometimes give gifts. Treat them special, remember their names and what they like. That's how you build regulars. How much should I charge? It feels strange discussing the price of your body like it's a yard of fabric or a pound of flour. Standard rate for basics is $2 for working men, $5 for businessmen. Anything special or that takes longer, you charge more. Use your judgment, but don't undercut the other girls. We've got standards to maintain. The coldly practical nature of the conversation is almost a relief. This isn't about shame or sin or any of the things Mrs. Holcomb would preach about. It's just business. One more thing, Sadie says, her voice softening slightly. Find something else to think about when you're with them. A place you like, a happy memory, a plan for the future. Don't let this job get in here. She taps her temple. That's how girls end up broken. It's perhaps the kindest thing she's said to you so far, and you find yourself unexpectedly moved. Thank you, Sadie. She waves your thanks away, businesslike again. Just practical advice. Now let's talk about your appearance. You're pretty enough, but you need to learn how to enhance it properly. The next hour is a crash course in the art of the painted lady. How to apply rouge to make your cheeks glow without looking feverish. How to darken your lashes with burnt cork mixed with petroleum jelly. How to outline your lips to make them look fuller. Men like a woman who looks healthy, Sadie explains as she demonstrates on your face. They get enough sickness and death in the mines. They come here for life and colour. When she's done, you barely recognise yourself in her mirror. The woman staring back looks worldly, confident, desirable. Nothing like the proper Boston shopkeeper's wife you were 6 months ago. There, Sadie says with satisfaction. Now you look the part. Remember what I showed you. First impressions matter in this business. Back in your room, you practice what Sadie taught you, trying to commit the techniques to memory. The makeup feels heavy and strange on your face, but you have to admit it's effective. Even in your plain day dress, you look like a different woman. A soft knock interrupts your practice. It's Pearl, the quiet brunette from breakfast. Sorry to bother you, she says, hovering in the doorway, but I thought you might want these. She holds out a pair of silk stockings only slightly worn. Charlotte was going to throw them out, just a small tear at the top, see? Nothing that can't be mended. You take the stockings, touched by the gesture. Good silk stockings are expensive, a luxury you haven't been able to afford since Thomas left. Thank you, you say. That's very kind. Pearl shrugs, looking embarrassed. Us girls have to look out for each other. No one else will. She turns to go, then hesitates. Some of us play cards in the kitchen on Tuesday afternoons when it's slow. You should join us. I'd like that, you say, and mean it. After she leaves, you examine the stockings. The tear is indeed small. easily fixed with a few careful stitches. You've always been handy with a needle. Maybe that's a skill you could offer the other girls in exchange for their knowledge. The afternoon passes in a flurry of activity. The whole place is being cleaned from top to bottom in preparation for the evening rush. You're assigned to help Maggie wash all the glassware while other girls sweep and mop and dust. Payday's always busy, Maggie explains as you dry a seemingly endless parade of glasses. Miners come in with their pockets full and looking to spend. Good money, but long hours. How many customers should I expect? You still have trouble saying the word. Like naming it makes it more real. Maggie considers this. On a regular night, maybe 5 or 6. On payday, could be double that. Don't worry, Sadie won't let anyone work you to death your first week. She's tough, but fair. As you work, Maggie fills you in on the unwritten rules and customs of the house. Who to avoid, the Barlow brothers if they manage to sneak in, a mine foreman named Tucker who likes to leave bruises, any man who won't take off his boots. Who the good customers are, Judge Wilson despite his wife. Doc Harris, who sometimes treats the girls for free, a shy bookkeeper from the mining office who mostly just wants to talk. The best times to take breaks, between 3 and 4 in the afternoon, early morning before the night shift miners come in, where to hide extra money sewed into a mattress in a hollowed-out Bible under a loose floorboard. It's a masterclass in survival, delivered matter-of-factly between polishing glasses. One more thing, Maggie says, lowering her voice. If you ever need to get away, really away, there's a woman in Denver who helps girls start over. Name's Mrs. Robinson, runs a boarding house for respectable working women. She doesn't ask questions about your past. Sadie knows about her, sends girls there sometimes when they want out of the life. You absorb this information silently, an escape route if you need it. Good to know. Why are you telling me this? You ask finally. Maggie's hands don't stop working as she answers. You've got that look, like you're just passing through, not settling in. Some girls are made for this life, they take to it like ducks to water. Others, she shrugs, just thought you should know there are options. Before you can respond, the front door bangs open and a boisterous group of men enters. Miners just off shift, their faces still streaked with coal dust, ready to spend their newly acquired wages. Showtime, Maggie murmurs, drying her hands on her apron. Remember what Sadie taught you, and if you get overwhelmed, signal me or one of the other girls. We look out for each other here. The afternoon blurs into evening as more men arrive, filling the saloon with noise and smoke and the smell of unwashed bodies. You circulate as Sadie instructed, smiling and chatting, accepting drinks that you secretly pour into the spittoon when no one's looking. It's overwhelming at first, the noise, the hands that seem to find their way to your waist or shoulders at every opportunity, the crude jokes and cruder propositions. But you find a rhythm eventually, a way to navigate the room that keeps you moving, never trapped in one spot for too long. You watch the other girls work, Charlotte with her brassy laugh and expert flirtation, Pearl quieter but with a mysterious air that seems to draw certain men like moths to flame, Daisy with her vivacious energy always in motion. Each has developed her own persona, her own way of attracting customers. What's yours going to be? You're still figuring that out. For now, you lean on your Boston background, playing up the contrast between your proper speech and your current profession. Men seem to enjoy the novelty of it. A real society lady, one miner says appreciatively after you correct his grammar without thinking. Fancy that in a place like this. By midnight, you've taken 3 men upstairs to your crib room. The encounters are brief, transactional, impersonal. You follow Sadie's advice and let your mind drift elsewhere, to a peaceful day in the Boston Public Garden, to plans for saving enough money to leave, to the plot of the last novel you read before your life collapsed. It works, mostly. You're present enough to ensure the men follow the rules, to count your money afterward, to use the douche powder as instructed, but some essential part of you is elsewhere, protected. Between customers, you find moments to breathe, standing by the back door, letting the cold mountain air clear your head, sharing a quick cigarette with Daisy on the back steps, a cup of coffee in the kitchen with Maggie, who always seems to know when someone needs a break. It's during one of these moments that you overhear a conversation that catches your attention. Two men at a nearby table, better dressed than the miners, one older with a heavy gold watch chain across his vest, the other younger with the look of an educated Easterner. "The railroad's coming through. Mark my words," the older man is saying. 6 months, maybe less. And when it does, this town's going to explode. "And you've already bought up the land they'll need," the younger man says with admiration. "Brilliant, Mr. Holcomb." Holcomb, the name registers immediately. Mrs. Holcomb's husband, the man who owns half the town, according to Sadie. Smart investing is about seeing the future before others do, Holcomb says smugly. "The mine's producing well, but it's the railroad that will make this town, and those who control the land control the future." You drift closer, pretending to clean an empty table. "What about the current businesses?" the young man asks. "Will they be affected?" Holcomb's laugh is short and dismissive. "Some will thrive, those that serve our purposes. Others—" His eyes drift around the saloon, lingering on the girls, on Sadie behind the bar. "Others may find that Silver Creek is becoming too respectable for their particular services." A chill runs through you. Is he planning to shut down the brothel? Where would you all go? What would happen to women like Pearl sending money to her children? Before you can hear more, Charlotte appears at your elbow. "Got a live one asking for you," she murmurs. "Table by the stairs. Looks like he can pay well." You reluctantly leave the conversation behind, filing the information away to think about later. For now, there's work to do. The man at the table is indeed well dressed, a travelling salesman, you guess from his polished appearance and sample case beside his chair. He introduces himself as Mr. Barrett, in town selling mining equipment. "Pleasure to meet you, Martha," he says, his smile revealing expensive dental work. "May I buy you a drink?" And so the dance begins again. But as you flirt and laugh and eventually lead him upstairs, your mind keeps returning to what you overheard. Change is coming to Silver Creek, the kind of change that might eliminate the only steady work available to women like you and your newfound sisters in this rough-edged town at the edge of civilization. You've barely begun to find your footing in this new world, and already it might be crumbling beneath you. Such is life in the Wild West, always uncertain, always balanced on the knife's edge between opportunity and ruin. As you close your door behind Mr. Barrett, you wonder what Sadie would say if you told her what you'd heard. Would she have a plan? Would she fight, or would she simply move on to the next boomtown, the next opportunity? And what would you do if forced to choose? Questions for tomorrow. For now, there's only the next customer, the next dollar, the next step in learning how to survive in a world far harsher than the one you left behind. 3 weeks in Silver Creek, and you're already developing routines. The unfamiliar has become familiar with alarming speed. You wake earlier now, before Maggie's knock. Your body's adjusting to the rhythm of brothel life. Sleep during the quiet afternoon hours, work from evening until dawn. The lumpy straw mattress no longer feels strange beneath you. The cold no longer shocks when your feet hit the bare floor each morning. Today, sunlight streams through your small window at an angle that tells you it's nearly noon. You've slept later than usual after a particularly busy night, payday at the mine again, and the saloon was packed until the early hours. Your muscles protest as you sit up. 27 customers in one night, a record you're not eager to repeat. But the money was good. Your emergency fund is growing faster than you'd hoped. Another couple of months like this, and you might have enough to leave to start over somewhere else. Maybe California. You've heard San Francisco is booming. More opportunities for women there, even respectable ones. That thought carries you through your morning rituals, washing your face, brushing your hair, dressing in your day clothes. No need for makeup and fine dresses until evening. Daytime is for chores, meals, and the brief window of normalcy the women carve out for themselves between shifts. The saloon below is quiet when you descend the stairs. Jim the bartender nods as you pass, busy polishing glasses. The tables have been cleaned, the floor swept of last night's debris, cigarette butts, broken glass, the occasional lost coin that Sadie always finds before anyone else. In the kitchen, Maggie presides over a pot of something that smells heavenly. Stew, you realise, with real beef, a luxury Sadie allows after good nights. There she is, Maggie says with a smile. Thought you might sleep through dinner. Nearly did, you admit, pouring yourself coffee. Is that real beef? Sure is. Sadie's in a good mood. Last night was the best take in months. She stirs the pot. Said we earned a proper meal. Pearl and Daisy are already at the table, playing cards. Charlotte is notably absent, probably still sleeping after her own busy night. She had a line of customers waiting outside her door from dusk till dawn. Well, look who finally decided to join the living, Daisy teases. Rough night, Martha? 27, you say, collapsing into a chair with your coffee. Pearl whistles low. Damn, I only had 18. You're building quite the reputation. There's no judgment in her tone, just professional acknowledgement. In this upside-down world, your growing customer base is a kind of success, a validation of your worth in the only currency that matters here. Deal me in next hand? You ask, nodding at their cards. Sure thing, we're playing for hairpins. Pearl shows you her small pile of winnings. I'm cleaning Daisy out. Only because I let you, Daisy retorts with a grin. These quiet afternoon moments have become your favourite part of life in Silver Creek. Just women together, no performance required, no men to please. Just coffee and cards and Maggie's cooking and conversation that doesn't require painted smiles. The back door opens, letting in a blast of cold air and Sheriff Parker. He removes his hat as he enters, nodding to the women. Ladies, Maggie, that stew smells like heaven itself. Might be some extra if you've got news worth hearing, Maggie replies without missing a beat, their familiar exchange revealing a relationship more complex than you initially assumed. The sheriff chuckles, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. Caught one of the Barlow boys trying to sneak in through the back window last night. Got him locked up for attempted breaking and entering. Maggie ladles stew into a bowl and sets it on the table. Worth a bowl, I'd say. You watch this interaction with fascination. The relationship between law enforcement and the brothel is clearly more nuanced than you'd expected. There's an understanding here, an equilibrium maintained through mutual benefit. The sheriff sits, nodding thanks for the food. His eyes land on you. Miss Martha, settling in all right? Yes, sir, you reply, still unsure how to interact with him. Is he friend or foe? Protector or threat? Good, good. Sadie runs a clean house. Follow her rules, you'll do fine. He takes a bite of stew, closing his eyes briefly in appreciation. Where's Miss Charlotte today? Still sleeping, Pearl answers. Busy night. The sheriff nods, unsurprised. I need to speak with Sadie. She around? Office, Maggie says, joining you at the table with her own bowl. Everything all right? Something passes across the sheriff's face. Concern, maybe. Just some news from county. Nothing for you ladies to worry about, but his tone suggests otherwise, and you exchange glances with Pearl. Something's happening. After finishing his stew with compliments to Maggie, Sheriff Parker disappears into Sadie's small office at the back of the saloon. The door closes firmly behind him. "What do you think that's about?" you ask quietly. Maggie shrugs, but her expression is troubled. Could be anything. New taxes, complaints from the church ladies, maybe news about the railroad. The railroad? Daisy perks up. Is it really coming through? That's the rumour, Pearl says. Mr. Holcomb's been buying up land all around town. Charlotte heard from Judge Wilson that the survey team's already been through. You remember the conversation you overheard between Holcomb and the young Easterner? I heard Holcomb talking about making the town more respectable. You think he's planning to push Sadie out? The women exchange concerned looks. It's Pearl who finally speaks, her voice low. Wouldn't be the first time. Happened in Denver after the big silver strike. Once the money men moved in with their wives and fancy notions, they pushed all the cribs and dance halls out to the edge of town. Some got shut down completely. Could be nothing, Maggie says, but she doesn't sound convinced. Sheriff would tell us if there was real trouble coming. Would he? You ask, genuinely curious. The sheriff seems friendly enough, but his loyalty is ultimately to the law and the powers that control the town. Before anyone can answer, Sadie's office door opens. Sheriff Parker emerges, looking grim, followed by Sadie herself. Her face gives nothing away, but there's tension in her shoulders you've learned to recognize. "Ladies," she says briskly, "change of plans for today. We need to do a bit of community outreach." Maggie raises an eyebrow. What kind of outreach? The miners' families over in Shantytown had some trouble last night. Cave-in at the South Shaft. 3 men trapped, 1 dead already. Sadie's voice is matter-of-fact, but her eyes are hard. Their relief fund is empty after that influenza outbreak last month. Sheriff says there are children going hungry while they wait to see if their daddies are coming home. A sombre mood settles over the kitchen. Mining accidents are common enough, but no less tragic for their frequency. "What are we doing?" Pearl asks quietly. "We're sending food, blankets, and money." Sadie looks at each of you, and we're delivering it ourselves. This clearly surprises everyone, you included. The women of the brothel generally stay within their own territory during daylight hours, avoiding the judgmental stares of the town's respectable citizens. "Ourselves," Daisy echoes, "but Mrs. Holcomb and her church ladies are too busy planning their harvest festival to bother with miners' wives," Sadie finishes for her. "Besides, those families' money ends up in our pockets eventually. Least we can do is give some back when they need it." There's something in her tone that brooks no argument. This isn't just charity, it's strategy. You're beginning to understand that in Silver Creek everything is about maintaining a delicate balance of power and goodwill. Maggie, pack up that stew and whatever bread we can spare. Girls, get your warmest shawls, it's cold out there, and each of you $10 from your earnings for the relief fund. $10 is a significant sum, almost 2 days' earnings for most of you, but no one protests. There's an unspoken understanding that this is part of your duty to the strange, symbiotic community you belong to. An hour later, you find yourself walking through the muddy streets of Silver Creek with Sadie, Pearl, and Charlotte, finally roused from bed for the occasion. Daisy has stayed behind with Maggie to prepare more food for the evening. Each of you carries something. You have a pot of stew, Pearl a stack of blankets, Charlotte a basket of bread. Sadie leads the way, head high, ignoring the stares and whispers that follow your unusual procession. Shantytown lies just beyond the edge of Silver Creek proper, a collection of hastily constructed shacks and tents where the miners and their families live. The contrast between these humble dwellings and the increasingly substantial buildings of the main town is stark. Even the saloon, for all its rough edges, is a palace compared to these shelters. Outside one of the larger shacks, a group of women and children have gathered. Their faces are drawn with worry and hunger. A woman in a faded dress stands slightly apart, clearly in charge. She steps forward as your group approaches. "Miss Sadie," she greets, her voice neither friendly nor hostile, simply resigned. "Sheriff Parker said you might be coming." "Mrs. Collins," Sadie nods respectfully. "We heard about the cave-in, brought some food and necessities for the families." Mrs. Collins studies your group for a long moment, her eyes lingering on your faces, recognition dawning. You resist the urge to look away. Finally, she nods. "That's Christian of you," she says, though her tone suggests she finds the description ironic. "The children haven't eaten since yesterday." "We brought stew, bread, and blankets," Sadie says, "gesturing for you all to set down your burdens. And this," she pulls out a small pouch that jingles with coins, "for the relief fund, $40. Mrs. Collins's eyes widen slightly. It's a substantial sum, more than a month's wages for most miners. "That's very generous," she says, clearly surprised. "It's practical," Sadie corrects her. "Your men spend their money in my establishment. If they can't work, we all suffer." The blunt assessment seems to ease something in Mrs. Collins. This is a transaction she can understand, not charity that demands gratitude. "Well, regardless of your reasons, the children will eat tonight. That's what matters." She takes the pouch and calls to the waiting families. "Come on then. There's food." What follows is a scene unlike anything you expected when you woke this afternoon. The women of Shantytown, miners' wives, many of whom probably curse their husbands for spending hard-earned money at your establishment, line up with their children for the food you've brought. There's little conversation, just nods of acknowledgement, occasionally a murmured, "Thank you." The children are less reserved. They grab pieces of bread with grubby hands, slurp stew noisily, and stare openly at your group. One little girl with tangled blonde hair tugs at your skirt. "Are you really one of the fancy ladies from the saloon?" she asks, eyes wide with curiosity. You feel your cheeks warm. Becky." Her mother appears, mortified. "I'm sorry, miss. She doesn't know what she's saying." "It's all right," you manage, smiling at the little girl. "Yes, I work at the saloon." "Do you wear pretty dresses?" Pa says the ladies at the saloon wear the prettiest dresses in town. Despite yourself, you laugh. "Yes, sometimes we do." The mother looks torn between embarrassment and her own curiosity. Finally, she asks quietly, "Is it true you ladies sent for a doctor from Denver when Timmy Wilson had the fever? The real good one that saved him?" The question catches you off guard. You glance at Sadie, who nods almost imperceptibly. "Yes," you say, "though this happened before your time. Miss Sadie arranged it." The woman nods, something shifting in her expression. "My Tommy's friends with Timmy. Don't know what we'd have done if... Well, thank you for the stew." She leads her daughter away, leaving you with a strange feeling. It's the first time since arriving in Silver Creek that someone outside the brothel has looked at you with something other than desire or contempt. As the food is distributed, you notice Sadie deep in conversation with Mrs. Collins and two other women. Their heads are bent together, their expressions serious. It doesn't look like charity talk. It looks like business. Pearl sidles up beside you, following your gaze. "Politics," she murmurs. "Sadie's good at it." "Politics?" you echo, confused. Sheriff brings her news. She decides who needs to know what. Those women." She nods toward the group with Sadie. "They're the real power in Shantytown. Their husbands might swing the picks, but these women keep everyone alive and in line. You watch the interaction with new eyes. There's something happening here beyond simple charity. Alliances being reinforced, information being exchanged. Sadie isn't just being kind, she's shoring up support, building goodwill that might be needed later. Is this about the railroad? You ask quietly. About Holcomb trying to clean up the town? Pearl shrugs, but her eyes are knowing. Sadie doesn't confide in me, but I've seen this before. She's preparing for something. On the walk back to the saloon, you find yourself beside Sadie. The other women have gone ahead, eager to get out of the cold. That wasn't just about feeding hungry children, was it? You ask, your breath fogging in the air. Sadie gives you a sharp look, then something like approval crosses her face. You notice things. Good. She's quiet for a moment, then, Silver Creek is changing. Money's coming in with the mine doing well, and the railroad will bring more. Men like Holcomb see opportunity. To push us out? To remake the town in their image, respectable, civilized. Her mouth twists on the words. Never mind that we were here first. Never mind that their precious civilization is built on our backs and other parts. The bitterness in her voice surprises you. Sadie usually maintains a pragmatic, emotionless demeanor. What can we do? She glances at you. We? Planning to stay around that long? Boston? You flush. Caught out. I don't know, but while I'm here, I'd rather not be run out of town. Sadie nods, satisfied with your answer. Smart. Well, first rule of frontier survival. Know who your friends are. Those women back there, their husbands vote. They talk to their husbands. When the town council meets to discuss new ordinances about where businesses of ill repute can operate, those votes matter. But the miners don't have the money or power that Holcomb has. No. But they have numbers, and they have needs that Holcomb and his kind pretend not to share. She smiles grimly. Besides, we have friends they don't expect. The sheriff, Doc Harris, even Judge Wilson, though he'd never admit it publicly. Men who understand that towns like Silver Creek need women like us to function. You walk in silence for a moment, absorbing this. The politics of a frontier town are more complex than you'd imagined, and Sadie is clearly a more sophisticated player than her rough manner suggests. Why are you telling me this? You finally ask. Sadie stops, turning to face you fully. Because you're not like the others. You're watching, thinking, planning. I recognize the type. Her eyes are shrewd, assessing. Girls like Daisy and Charlotte, they live in the moment. Pearl's focused on her kids. But you've got one foot out the door already. I respect that. Just wanted you to understand what you're part of while you're here. You're not sure how to respond to this unexpected insight. It's unsettling to be so transparent to her. I'm just trying to survive, you say finally. Sadie laughs, a short, genuine sound. Aren't we all? But there's surviving, and then there's thriving. Big difference. She resumes walking. Think about it, Boston. You've got brains. Might be ways to use them that don't involve spreading your legs 27 times a night. The crude assessment makes you wince, but there's something like a compliment buried in there. Before you can respond, you've reached the saloon. The evening customers are already beginning to arrive, and your strange afternoon interlude in Shantytown recedes as the familiar rhythm of the night shift begins. But as you change into your work clothes, the red satin with too much lace that no longer feels strange against your skin, you find yourself thinking about Sadie's words, about politics and power in this rough-edged town, about surviving versus thriving. You came to Silver Creek with one goal: earn enough to escape, but now you're glimpsing something unexpected, the complex social web that holds this precarious community together and the crucial, if unacknowledged, role that women like you play in it. It's not respectable. It's not the life you were raised for, but there's a kind of power here, hidden beneath the surface. Power that even proper Mrs. Holcomb, for all her moral certainty, doesn't possess. As you pin up your hair and apply rouge to your cheeks with practiced movements, you wonder, what could you do with that power, even temporarily? What difference could you make in this small corner of the Wild West before you leave it behind? Questions without answers, at least for now. Night has fallen on Silver Creek, and there's work to be done. You're getting good at faking sleep, eyes closed, breathing slow and even while your mind races. It's a survival skill in this place, stealing moments of stillness while appearing unavailable for work. 6 weeks in Silver Creek and the novelty has thoroughly worn off. Your body aches constantly. No matter how much you wash, you can't seem to get truly clean. Sleep comes in fractured chunks between customers or during the slow afternoon hours. But the money is good. Your hiding place, a hollowed-out space beneath a loose floorboard under your bed, is filling with carefully folded bills. Not just survival money anymore, but escape money, future money. A knock at your door breaks your counterfeit rest. You recognize Sadie's sharp, efficient rap. "I know you're awake in there, Boston. Got a job for you." You sigh and sit up, abandoning the pretense. Coming. The afternoon light slanting through your window tells you it's around 3, the quietest time in the saloon. Most customers are at work and the night crowd hasn't arrived yet. Usually a good time to actually sleep, not just pretend to. You splash water on your face, smooth your hair, and open the door. Sadie stands there with an expectant look and a stack of papers in her hand. "Need your help with the books," she says without preamble. "Maggie says you've got education." This catches you off guard. You've never mentioned your schooling to anyone here, though you suppose your manner of speaking gives away more than you realized. Some, you admit cautiously, basic arithmetic, reading, writing. Good enough. Come on. You follow her to her office, curious. The small room behind the saloon is Sadie's private domain, part bedroom, part office, the place where she keeps the business running. A desk covered in ledgers and papers occupies one corner, a small bed the other. A pot-bellied stove provides warmth, making this the coziest room in the building. "Sit," she orders, pointing to a chair beside the desk. "Sheriff's coming tomorrow for the monthly inspection and fee collection. Need to make sure our books are in order." Fee collection? You settle into the chair as Sadie drops the stack of papers in front of you. 10% of our profits goes to the town council for public health and safety, she explains, making quotation marks in the air. Official term for looking the other way. Been that way since Silver Creek Incorporated 3 years ago. That's legal? Sadie snorts. Legal enough. Keeps us operating without harassment. Provides the town with funds they don't have to account for to the territorial government. Everyone wins. She taps the ledger. Problem is, I'm behind on the record keeping. Too busy with all this railroad business. Need you to match these receipts to the entries. Make sure everything balances. You open the ledger, oddly comforted by the neat columns of figures. This is familiar territory. Your father's store had similar books which he taught you to manage before you were 16, before he died and left everything to your brother, who promptly sold the business to fund his own ventures. "I can do this," you say, with more confidence than you've felt about anything since arriving in Silver Creek. "Good. Get it done by dinner. I'll be back." She leaves you to it, closing the door behind her. Alone in the warm quiet of the office, you lose yourself in the familiar rhythm of accounting. Receipts for liquor deliveries, payouts to the girls, bribes to various officials listed as community relations, costs for laundry and food, and coal for the stoves. It's oddly soothing, this ordered world of numbers. The ledger reveals more about Sadie's operation than you expected. She's meticulous, tracking every penny in and out, and profitable. The brothel clears more money in a month than your father's store did in a year. You also note with interest that Sadie puts aside 10% of the profits each month for something listed only as contingency. Preparing for trouble, you realize. Smart. You're so absorbed in the work that you don't notice the door open. A man's voice startles you. Well, well, what have we here? You look up to find a tall man in an expensive suit filling the doorway. His beard is neatly trimmed, his hat clearly costly. You recognize him immediately from your eavesdropping. Mr. Holcomb. Sir, you say, closing the ledger instinctively. Miss Sadie isn't here right now? I can see that. His eyes move over you in a way that makes your skin crawl, despite your professional familiarity with male attention. You're new. Don't think we've been introduced. Martha, you say shortly, standing. I should find Miss Sadie for you. He steps into the room, blocking your path to the door. No hurry. I'm sure we can entertain each other until she returns. The implication is clear, and a flutter of panic rises in your chest. You've dealt with plenty of forward men in your weeks here, but always on your terms, with the knowledge that Sadie or the bouncer was nearby. I'm afraid I'm not available at the moment, sir, you say, striving to keep your voice steady. I'm helping with the accounts. He laughs, a sound without humour. A whore who can cipher. How novel. He moves closer, and you catch the smell of expensive cologne and whiskey. I'm willing to pay extra for novelty. You step back until your legs hit the desk. Sir, Miss Sadie has strict rules about Miss Sadie. He interrupts. Works in this town at my pleasure. A fact she'd do well to remember. His hand reaches for your face, and so do you. You duck away from his touch, heart hammering. Mr. Holcomb, please. The use of his name gives him pause. You know who I am. Yes, sir. Everyone does. He seems to like this, standing a little straighter. Then you know I own half this town. The important half. Yes, sir. Good. Then we understand each other. He reaches for you again, and this time you have nowhere to retreat. The door bangs open, saving you. Sadie stands there, her expression murderous. Mr. Holcomb, she says, her voice icier than you've ever heard it. This is a surprise. He withdraws his hand slowly, turning to face her with a smug smile. Miss Sadie, just getting acquainted with your new girl. Martha is occupied with business matters at the moment, Sadie says, stepping into the room. But we have several other ladies available if you're interested in companionship. Perhaps another time. He straightens his jacket. Actually, I came to discuss business. The town council meets next week to review all commercial licenses. Thought you might want to know there's some discussion about rezoning the main street. The threat hangs in the air, thinly veiled. Sadie's face reveals nothing. Is that so? Well, we appreciate the heads up. Always good to stay informed of civic matters. Indeed. He moves toward the door, pausing beside Sadie. Your lease comes up for renewal soon, doesn't it? Next month, she confirms, voice neutral. Property values are rising. What with the railroad coming? Expect some changes to the terms. He tips his hat. Ladies! After he leaves, Sadie closes the door firmly and leans against it, exhaling slowly. For a moment, she looks tired, a rare glimpse behind her usual mask of control. You all right? Right, Boston. You nod, though your hands are still shaking slightly. He didn't do anything, just scared me a little. Holcomb likes to scare people. It's how he does business. She moves to her desk, glancing at the ledger. How's it coming? Almost done. Everything balances so far. You hesitate, then ask, can he really force us out? Sadie's laugh is short and bitter. He can try. Man thinks because he's got money and influence, he can reshape the world to suit him. She sits heavily in her chair, but he forgets. Men like him built this town on the backs of men who need what we provide. You can't have a mining town without whiskey and women. Laws of nature. Her confidence is reassuring, but you remember the cool calculation in Holcomb's eyes. Men like him change the laws to suit themselves. What will you do? She looks at you sharply. We, Boston, what will we do? She taps the ledger. This is why I needed these in order. Need to know exactly where we stand before the fight starts. Fight? The word makes your stomach tighten. Figure of speech, mostly. She sighs. Finish up here, then go get some real rest. Tonight's going to be busy. Miners coming up from the south shaft rotation. You return to the numbers, but your mind keeps circling back to Holcomb's visit, the casual way he invaded the space, his assumption of power over both you and Sadie, the veiled threats about licenses and leases. It's a reminder of how precarious your position is. Not just yours personally, but all the women here. For all the money changing hands, for all the essential service you provide to this frontier town, your existence hangs by a thread controlled by men like Holcomb. By the time you finish balancing the books, your earlier sense of accomplishment has soured. You return to your room, but sleep eludes you despite your exhaustion. Eventually you give up dressing for the evening shift early. The red satin dress feels like armor now, a uniform you put on to face the world. You apply your makeup with practiced strokes, transforming into Martha, the version of yourself who smiles and laughs and pretends to find joy in the company of lonely, often unwashed men. Downstairs, the saloon is beginning to come alive. Jim the bartender is setting up, Maggie is arranging food on the sideboard, and the first early customers, day shift miners with dust still in the creases of their hands, are settling in with whiskey and cards. Charlotte is already working the room, looking fresh despite the late night she pulled yesterday. She glides from table to table in a blue dress that matches her eyes, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, touching men's arms and shoulders with calculated intimacy. She's good at this, you realise. Better than you'll ever be, because she doesn't seem to mind it the way you do. Or maybe she's just better at pretending. "You're early," Sadie comments as you pass the bar. "Couldn't sleep?" "Too much on my mind," you admit. She studies your face. "Holcomb's visit got to you. It's not a question, but you nod anyway. Don't let him. Men like that feed on fear." She pours a shot of whiskey and slides it to you. Liquid courage. Just one. You take it gratefully, the burn in your throat steadying you somehow. "Thanks." "Don't mention it." She busies herself with arranging bottles. "By the way, got a letter for Pearl today from her sister in Denver. Thought you might want to take it to her. She's not feeling well staying in bed. The errand is clearly a pretext. Sadie could easily deliver the letter herself, but you recognize the gesture for what it is. A chance to gather yourself before beginning work. A small kindness. Of course. Pearl's room is at the end of the hall, slightly larger than yours by virtue of her seniority. Your knock is answered by a weak "come in." The room is dim, curtains drawn against the late afternoon sun. Pearl lies in bed, her face pale against the pillow. "Martha," she says, attempting a smile, "what brings you by?" "Letter from your sister." You hold up the envelope. "Sadie thought you'd want it right away." Her face brightens and she sits up, reaching for it. "Thank you. I've been waiting to hear about the children. She tears it open eagerly, scanning the contents. You turn to leave, giving her privacy, but she calls you back. Wait, there's news you should hear. She pats the edge of the bed. Sit. You perch beside her, curious. Pearl rarely shares personal details, despite your growing friendship. My sister writes that another house in Denver was shut down last week. The city's expanding eastward, and the respectable folks don't want brothels in their nice neighborhoods. She looks up from the letter, eyes serious. It's happening just like Sadie said. They're pushing the cribs to the edges, closing the ones that don't move fast enough. Because of the railroad, you ask, thinking of Holcomb's threats. Partly. Mostly it's just what happens when a mining camp turns into a proper town. First come the prospectors and miners, then the merchants, then the families. She folds the letter carefully. Once there are enough women in town, respectable women, the men in charge start pretending they never needed our kind in the first place. The injustice of it burns in your chest. But the town wouldn't exist without women like us at the beginning. Doesn't matter. History gets written by the respectable folks, not by soiled doves. Her smile is sad. My own children will probably never know what their mother really did to keep them fed. My sister tells them I'm a seamstress. The pain in her voice is raw, and you reach for her hand instinctively. I'm sorry, Pearl. She squeezes your fingers. Don't be. I made my choices and I stand by them. My Henry, my oldest. He's in school now. Proper school with books and everything. My sister says he's smart as a whip. Pride shines through her weariness. Worth it. All of it. You sit in silence for a moment, holding her hand, thinking about choices and consequences. About what people do to survive and the lies society tells about them afterward. You should go, Pearl says finally. Customers will be coming in soon. I just need another day in bed, then I'll be back on my feet. Can I bring you anything? Food? Tea? I'm fine. Maggie's been checking on me. She hesitates, then adds, but maybe. Could you look in on me after your shift? Sometimes it gets lonely up here, just staring at the ceiling. Of course. You squeeze her hand one more time before rising. Try to rest. Back downstairs, the saloon is filling up. The piano player has arrived, and his somewhat out-of-tune rendition of Buffalo Gals provides a backdrop to the growing noise of conversation and clinking glasses. You slide into work mode, circulating through the room, smiling and chatting, allowing men to buy you drinks that you discreetly abandon. It's mechanical now, this performance. You've learned the rhythms, the expected responses, how to seem interested without encouraging excessive attachment. Around 9, the door opens to admit a man you haven't seen before. He's better dressed than most customers, not wealthy like Holcomb, but respectable. A shop owner, perhaps, or a clerk. He hesitates just inside the entrance, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Charlotte materializes beside you. New meat, she murmurs. Looks like a good tipper, too. All yours, you offer, but she shakes her head. Nah, I've got the Wallace brothers buying me drinks all night, looking for a big payday. She nods toward a pair of ruddy-faced men at the bar. You take him. The newcomer has found a seat at an empty table, still looking uncertain. You make your way over, professional smile in place. Evening, sir. New in town? He looks up, startled, and you're struck by his eyes. A clear, intelligent blue, unlike the often dull or predatory gazes you've grown accustomed to. Is it that obvious? His voice is pleasant, with traces of an Eastern education. We don't get many new faces, you explain, sliding into the chair across from him. Passing through? Actually, I've just moved to Silver Creek, opening a bookshop next month, once my inventory arrives. He extends a hand formally. Edward Hayes. The gesture is so unexpectedly proper that you laugh even as you shake his hand. Martha, though I doubt a respectable bookshop owner should be seen conversing with me. He flushes but doesn't look away. I've never put much stock in social pretensions, Miss Martha, especially in a frontier town where everyone's history begins the day they arrived. There's something refreshing about his directness. No crude propositions, no pouring hands, just conversation between two people. A bookshop, you muse. Will there be enough customers in Silver Creek? More than you might think. The railroad's coming, bringing more settlers, and miners read more than people give them credit for. Long dark hours underground give a man appreciation for escape. You think of your own precious books left behind in Boston. What kind will you stock? His face lights up at the question, and you realize with a pang that it's been weeks since you had a genuine conversation about anything beyond the immediate needs of survival. Everything I can get my hands on. Classics, of course. Adventure stories, Cooper, Verne, Stevenson, practical manuals for mining and farming, and poetry, though that might be a harder sell. He studies you curiously. You enjoy reading. I used to, you admit. Haven't had much opportunity lately. You're welcome to borrow from my stock when it arrives. I'll need readers to spread the word about the shop. The offer is clearly sincere, and it touches something in you that's been dormant since you arrived in Silver Creek, the part that craves intellectual stimulation, beauty, art, things that have no place in the brutal economy of the brothel. That's very kind, Mr. Hayes. Edward, please. Edward. The name feels foreign on your lips. An actual name, not Sir or Mr. or crude endearments. He's about to say more when a hand clamps down on your shoulder. You look up to find one of your regular customers, a burly miner named Frank, his face flushed with drink. There you are, Martha. Been looking for you. His fingers dig into your flesh. Thought we had an arrangement tonight. You hadn't promised Frank anything, but arguing with a drunk man is rarely productive. I was just about to come find you. You lie smoothly, rising from the table. Mr. Hayes, if you'll excuse me. Edward looks concerned, glancing between you and Frank. Of course, he says finally. Perhaps we can continue our conversation another time. The lady's occupied for the rest of the night, Frank says, possessive hand still on your shoulder. Aren't you, Martha? You smile tightly. It was nice meeting you, Edward. As Frank leads you away, you glance back to see Edward watching with a troubled expression. The contrast between his respectful conversation and Frank's proprietary grip makes your chest ache with something like shame, though you know the feeling is irrational. This is your job, your survival. But for those few minutes at Edward's table, you'd remembered what it felt like to be Eleanor Blackwood again, a woman with thoughts and interests beyond her body's utility. Now, as you climb the stairs with Frank's hot breath on your neck, that woman recedes once more, and Martha, the brothel worker, returns to do what she must. Later, after Frank and two other regulars, you keep your promise to look in on Pearl. Her room is dark now, lit only by a single candle. She's still awake, propped up on pillows, her face drawn with pain or fatigue or both. How are you feeling, you ask, settling on the edge of her bed. Been better? She attempts a smile. How was your night? Oh, same as always. You don't mention Edward Hayes or the brief respite his conversation provided. It seems too private, too precious to share just yet. Not too busy yet? Should pick up after midnight when the late shift lets out? Pearl nods, then winces, pressing a hand to her abdomen. You notice a basin of bloody rags beside the bed, and understanding dawns. Monthly troubles? You ask gently. Or worse than usual? she grimaces. Maggie gave me some willow bark tea, but it's not helping much. You think of Sadie's box of remedies. What about laudanum? Trying not to. Her voice is strained. It helps, but too easy to need it more and more. Seen too many girls go down that road. You nod, respecting her caution while wishing you could ease her pain. Is there anything I can do? Just talk to me for a while. Anything to take my mind elsewhere. So, you talk about Boston, about your father's shop, about the books you loved as a child, about the customers downstairs, Maggie's cooking, the changing weather, mundane things, safe things, until her eyes grow heavy and her breathing evens out. You blow out the candle and leave her to sleep, your own exhaustion settling into your bones, but there's no rest for you yet. The night is young by Brothel standards, and there's money to be made. As you descend the stairs, you spot Edward Hayes still at his table, nursing what looks like the same drink from hours ago. He catches your eye and offers a small smile, not the leering grin of a potential customer, but something more genuine. For a moment, you're tempted to return to his table, to steal a few more minutes of normal conversation. But Frank is watching from the bar, his possessive gaze a reminder of the world you actually inhabit. So you turn away, moving toward another group of miners fresh from their shift, dust still clinging to their clothes. This is your reality now, not books or pleasant conversation or the luxury of choosing your companions. But as you laugh at a crude joke and allow a calloused hand to settle on your waist, you find yourself holding tight to the memory of those few minutes at Edward's table. A reminder that another world exists beyond these walls, beyond this life you've temporarily embraced. A world you might someday rejoin if you're careful and lucky and strong enough to survive this cruel, beautiful, terrible place called the Wild West. The knock comes as you're counting the morning's take, soft and tentative, not Sadie's commanding rap or Maggie's brisk tap. You tuck the money into your bodice before opening the door. It's Becky, the little girl from Shantytown with the tangled blonde hair. She stands in the hallway, clutching a folded piece of paper, her eyes wide as she takes in your dishevelled appearance. It's barely 9 in the morning, and you're still in your nightdress. "Mrs. Collins sent me," she announces, thrusting the paper toward you. "Said it's for Miss Sadie, but she ain't downstairs." You take the note, surprised. "Thank you, Becky. Would you like something to eat before you head back?" Maggie usually has breakfast going. Her face brightens, but she shakes her head reluctantly. "Can't. Ma says I ain't to linger. Said to get right back." She shifts from foot to foot. "But maybe next time." "Next time," you agree, touched by her earnestness. "Tell Mrs. Collins I'll make sure Miss Sadie gets this right away." She nods, then blurts out, "My pa's one of the ones you all helped when the mine collapsed. He says you ladies ain't as bad as the church folks say." The guileless statement catches you off guard. That's very kind of him. He says we shouldn't judge nobody till we walked a mile in their boots. She grins, revealing a missing front tooth. "Anyway, thanks for the stew you brought. Ma says I got to go now." She scampers off, her footsteps fading down the back stairs. You close the door, smiling despite your exhaustion. 2 months in Silver Creek, and you're still surprised by moments like this, unexpected kindness amid the harshness of frontier life. The note is sealed with a blob of candle wax. You should take it directly to Sadie, but curiosity gets the better of you. You carefully break the seal and unfold the paper. Meeting tonight. Holcomb's men in town hall. 8 p.m. Railroad contracts being signed. Need to know what we're facing. The curt message sends a chill through you. For weeks, Silver Creek has buzzed with rumors about the railroad, where the station would be built, whose land would be bought, what changes would come. Now it seems things are moving faster than expected. You refold the note and finish dressing, then head downstairs. The saloon is quiet at this hour. A few men sleeping off the previous night's excesses, Jim sweeping the floor, Maggie humming in the kitchen. Sadie's office door is closed, but light shines beneath it. Your knock is answered with a gruff, "Come in." Sadie sits at her desk, ledgers open before her, a half-empty bottle of whiskey at her elbow. It's unusual to see her drinking this early. Her face is drawn, hair loose around her shoulders rather than in its usual tidy arrangement. "Note from Mrs. Collins," you say, handing her the paper. "A little girl delivered it just now." She reads it quickly, then crumples it in her fist. "Damn it all to hell. What does it mean? About the contracts?" Sadie takes a slug of whiskey before answering. "Means Holcomb's making his move. Railroad's chosen their route through town, and he's making sure it benefits him and his cronies." She gestures to the chair across from her. "Sit, might as well tell you what's happening." You settle into the chair, oddly honoured by her confidence. Despite your time here, Sadie still keeps most of her business dealings private. "Been hearing whispers for weeks," she begins, her voice low. "Railroad surveyors chose a route that cuts right through the eastern edge of town, right through our end of Main Street. Understanding dawns. Where the saloon is, where all the saloons are, the entire entertainment district." She laughs bitterly. "Convenient, isn't it? The railroad needs this land, so it all has to go. And Holcomb, being the public-spirited citizen he is, has offered to handle the negotiations and relocation." Can he do that? Legally, maybe not. But this is frontier justice we're dealing with. The territorial governor's in his pocket, and most of the town council too. She rubs her temples. "I've seen this play out before. They'll offer pennies on the dollar for the properties. Claim eminent domain if anyone resists." What will you do? The question comes out as you, not we, and Sadie notices. "All running out on us already, Boston?" But there's no real accusation in her tone. "Can't blame you. Might be the smart play." You flush, caught between your survival instinct and a growing loyalty to this strange makeshift family. "I didn't mean—" She waves off your protest. "No need to explain. You came here to survive, not to fight a war with the likes of Holcomb." She sighs, suddenly looking older than her years. "But some of us don't have the luxury of starting over somewhere else. This place is all I've got." The resignation in her voice stirs something in you. Indignation, perhaps, or simple human empathy. What if we did fight? Not with guns, but some other way. Sadie studies you, a flicker of interest in her tired eyes. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet," you admit, "but there must be something. You said yourself, this town needs what we provide. The miners, the businesses that depend on them, they'd all suffer if Holcomb pushes us out." True enough, but men like that count on folks being too afraid to stand up. She considers for a moment. Still, might be worth trying. Nothing to lose at this point. She pulls a fresh sheet of paper from her desk drawer and begins writing. "First, we need to know exactly what's in those contracts. Mrs. Collins's husband sits on the town council, but he's just one vote. We need more allies." She looks up at you. "Your friend the bookshop owner, Hayes. He's been spending a lot of time here lately, though not much with the girls. He's sweet on you." The question catches you off guard. Edward has indeed become a regular at the saloon over the past few weeks, but as he'd promised that first night, he comes mostly to talk. Sometimes he brings a book to share, reading passages aloud in a quiet corner while you listen during breaks between customers. It's a strange friendship conducted in stolen moments, neither of you acknowledging the reality of your situation. "He's just being kind," you say carefully. "He knows I like to read." Sadie snorts. Men don't spend money in a whorehouse just to read to the merchandise, Boston. But whatever you want to call it, he might be useful. New business owner, educated, respectable. The kind of man Holcomb wants in his new, improved Silver Creek. The idea of using Edward makes you uncomfortable, though you're not sure why. Your relationship, such as it is, already exists in a realm of unspoken compromises and willful ignorance. I could talk to him, you say finally. See what he knows about the railroad plans. Good, do that. Sadie returns to her writing. Meanwhile, I'll reach out to some of the other business owners who'll be affected. Malone at the Silver Dollar, Jenkins at the hotel. Even that old hypocrite Winters at the general store. His place is on the chopping block too, though he's probably too thick to realise it yet. She works in silence for a moment, then says, without looking up, "That accounting you did last month, it was good work. Clean, accurate. You've got ahead figures. The unexpected praise warms you. Thank you, my father taught me. He had a shop back east." Useful skill. She sets down her pen, meeting your eyes directly. Listen, Boston, things are going to get complicated around here. If you want to take your savings and head out, now's the time. No hard feelings. The offer is genuine, and for a moment you're tempted. You have enough saved now to make it to California, to start fresh somewhere far from Silver Creek and its troubles. But the thought of leaving, of abandoning Sadie and Pearl and Maggie and even Charlotte to face Holcomb alone, sits uneasily in your chest. "I'll stay," you hear yourself say, "for now, at least, until we see how this plays out." Sadie nods, something like respect in her gaze. Your choice, but keep your money close and your options open. Things might get ugly. The day passes in a blur of preparation. Sadie sends messages to various allies around town, dispatching girls with notes, receiving visitors in her office. The saloon remains closed. Taking inventory. The sign on the door reads, though it's clearly a pretext for the strategy session happening inside. Around 4, Edward Hayes arrives, looking puzzled at the locked door until you slip out to meet him on the porch. "Martha," he greets you with his usual warm smile. "Is everything all right? The saloon's never closed at this hour. We need to talk," you say, glancing around to ensure privacy. "About the railroad." His expression shifts, becoming guarded. "What about it?" "Holcomb's signing contracts tonight, moving to force out businesses on this end of Main Street to make way for the tracks and station." Edward's brow furrows. "I'd heard rumours, but nothing definite. My shop's on the West End, so I haven't been paying as much attention as I should." He studies your face. "You're worried." "This place is my livelihood," you say simply. "And not just mine. There are a dozen women here who depend on it." He nods slowly. "What can I do?" The directness of his offer touches you. No hesitation, no questions about whether a brothel deserves saving, just a straightforward offer of help. Information for now. Holcomb respects you, a business owner, educated, the kind of person he wants in his vision of Silver Creek. "If you could attend the meeting tonight, listen to what's being proposed." "Spy for you, you mean?" But he doesn't sound offended, merely thoughtful. "I wouldn't put it that way." "It's all right, Martha. I understand." He leans against the porch railing, considering. Holcomb's vision for this town doesn't include many of the people who built it. That doesn't sit right with me. Relief washes through you. "So you'll do it?" "I'll do what I can." He straightens, suddenly business-like. "The meeting's at 8? I'll come by afterward, let you know what I learn." "Thank you, Edward. Truly." He studies you for a moment, then says quietly, "You're different from what I expected when I first came to town. All of you are. What did you expect? Frankly, broken women, victims, or degenerates?" He looks embarrassed by the admission. "Instead, I found businesswomen, survivors. a community. The assessment is surprisingly insightful, and you find yourself smiling despite the circumstances. We're all those things, sometimes all at once. He returns your smile, then glances at the sky. I should go prepare for tonight. Tell Sadie I'll do what I can. After he leaves, you return to the War Council in the saloon. Sadie has been joined by several other business owners from the east end of Main Street. Malone from the Silver Dollar, Jenkins from the hotel, even old Winters from the general store, looking uncomfortable to be in a brothel but too worried about his property to stay away. Hayes will attend the meeting, you report. He'll bring us information afterward. Sadie nods approvingly. Good work, Boston. Now we need to prepare for whatever Holcomb's planning. She turns to the assembled men. Gentlemen, I suggest we form a property owners association. Present a united front. They can't force all of us out at once. The discussion continues, strategies proposed and rejected, alliances formed and tested. You find yourself taking notes, offering suggestions based on what you've observed of town politics during your time here. It's strangely exhilarating using your mind this way after weeks of physical labor and emotional performance. By the time evening falls, a plan has begun to take shape. Not a guarantee of victory, but at least a fighting chance. The business owners depart for their own establishments, leaving Sadie and you alone in the quiet saloon. Think it'll work, you ask, as you help her clear away glasses and papers. Depends what Holcomb has up his sleeve. She looks tired but determined. But we've survived worse. And we've got one advantage he doesn't expect. What's that? She smiles grimly. He thinks we're just whores, doesn't realise we're also human beings with brains and connections and a stake in this town. She squeezes your shoulder briefly. Get some rest. Tonight might be a long one. You retreat to your room, but rest is impossible. Instead, you count your savings again, tucked safely beneath the floorboard. Enough to leave if things go badly, enough to start over somewhere else. But as you sit on your narrow bed, you realise you're no longer thinking only of your own escape. You're thinking of Pearl's children in Denver, of Maggie's arthritis that makes laundry days agony, of Charlotte who drinks too much but makes everyone laugh, of Sadie who built something out of nothing on this harsh frontier. What happens to them if Holcomb wins? A soft knock interrupts your thoughts. It's Pearl, looking better than she has in days, her colour restored. Heard you've been busy, she says, settling beside you on the bed. Maggie says you're helping Sadie fight Holcomb, trying to. Not sure how much good it'll do? Pearl is quiet for a moment, then says, You know, when I first came here, I thought it would be temporary. Just until I saved enough to bring my children out from Denver, start over somewhere respectable. She smiles sadly. 3 years later, I'm still here, and the respectable life keeps getting further away. You could still leave, you suggest gently. We all could, if things go badly. And go where? Do what? She shakes her head. This is the only place that would have me, with 3 kids and no husband and no skills except the ones I use here. She takes your hand. That's why what you're doing matters. For some of us, there's nowhere else to go. The weight of her words settles on you. The responsibility, the reality of what's at stake. Not just a business, but people's lives, homes, futures. I'll do what I can, you promise, squeezing her hand. But I'm just one person, and Holcomb has money and power and the law on his side. Sometimes one person is enough to tip the balance. She rises, moving to the door. Especially one person with nothing left to lose. After she leaves, you sit in the gathering darkness, turning her words over in your mind. Is that what you've become? Someone with nothing left to lose? Or is it the opposite? Someone who's found something unexpected worth fighting for? The saloon remains closed that evening, an unprecedented occurrence that has likely set tongues wagging all over Silver Creek. Around 9, you hear movement downstairs, voices, the clink of glasses. Sadie must be meeting with someone. You change into your day dress and make your way downstairs, curious. In the dim light of a few lamps, you find Sadie, Maggie, and Mrs. Collins from Shantytown seated at a table, heads bent in conversation. They look up as you approach. "Boston," Sadie gestures to an empty chair. "Join us." Mrs. Collins was just sharing what her husband overheard at the meeting. Mrs. Collins nods a greeting. She looks different here, away from Shantytown, still careworn, but with a sharpness to her gaze that suggests intelligence and determination. "It's as bad as we feared," she says without preamble. "Holcomb's got the contracts ready. Railroad's paying top dollar for the land, but he's arranged for the town to claim eminent domain first, buy out the current owners at a fraction of the value." "Can they do that?" Maggie asks, echoing your earlier question to Sadie. "Legally, questionable, but with the territorial governor backing them and most of the town council in Holcomb's pocket," Mrs. Collins shrugs. "My Thomas tried to object, but he was outvoted." Sadie's face is grim. "Timeline? 30 days notice, starting tomorrow? Then forced buyouts for anyone who hasn't sold voluntarily." The news lands like a physical blow. 30 days. Not nearly enough time to mount an effective opposition, to find new properties, to relocate. "What about your friend?" Sadie asks you. "The bookshop owner, did he attend?" As if summoned by her question, the back door opens and Edward steps in, looking agitated. His eyes find yours immediately. "Martha, good, you're here." He removes his hat, nodding to the other women. "Miss Sadie, ladies, I came as soon as I could get away without arousing suspicion." "What did you learn?" Sadie asks, gesturing him to a seat. He sits, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "It's worse than we thought. The railroad deal is just the beginning. Holcomb's planning to use it as the first step in a larger civic improvement campaign. He's talking about new ordinances, restricting saloons and brothels to a small area south of town, imposing hefty license fees, mandatory health inspections at the owner's expense. He wants to regulate us out of existence," Sadie concludes flatly. "Make it too expensive and difficult to operate legally." Edward nods grimly. "Exactly, and he's got the votes on the council to do it. The only thing slowing him down is the mayor, who's worried about losing tax revenue if the entertainment district shrinks too quickly." "Small mercies," Maggie mutters. "There's more," Edward continues. "He specifically mentioned your establishment, Miss Sadie, said it was the most visible symbol of vice and moral corruption in Silver Creek." Sadie actually laughs at this. "Well, I'm flattered to be singled out, but it doesn't change our situation." "What about the Property Owners Association?" you ask. "If everyone bands together, refuses the lowball offers." "He's thought of that," Edward says. "He's approaching each owner separately, offering slightly different terms to prevent a united front, and he's using the stick as well as the carrot, hinting that those who cooperate will find opportunities in the new development, while those who resist might face other difficulties, building code violations, license reviews, that sort of thing." A heavy silence falls over the table. The scope of Holcomb's plan is breathtaking in its calculation and thoroughness. He's thought of everything, leveraged every advantage. "So that's it?" Mrs. Collins finally asks. "We just roll over and let him win?" "No," Sadie says firmly. "We fight. We just need to be smarter about how we do it." She turns to Edward. "Who else was at this meeting?" Anyone who seemed uncomfortable with Holcomb's plans? As Edward lists names and impressions, you find your mind drifting, thinking about Silver Creek and how it's changed even in your short time here, about the miners who rely on the saloon for comfort and company after grueling shifts, about the women of Shantytown who benefited from your charity during the cave-in crisis, about all the invisible connections that bind this frontier community together, connections that Holcomb, for all his power, doesn't seem to fully understand. An idea begins to form, not a complete strategy, but the seed of one, a way to fight back that leverages what Holcomb sees as your greatest weakness, your status as fallen women on the margins of respectable society. What if you begin slowly drawing everyone's attention? We don't fight the railroad or the relocation directly. What if we make it impossible for Holcomb to exclude us from whatever comes next? Sadie raises an eyebrow. Explain. Holcomb's power comes from money and respectability. We can't match his money, but what if we could challenge the notion that we're all vice and moral corruption? You lean forward, warming to your idea. What if we showed the town, especially the parts Holcomb needs, like the miners and their families, that we're valuable beyond what happens upstairs in the cribs? Edward catches on first, his eyes brightening. You're talking about changing the narrative, making yourselves indispensable to the community in ways that have nothing to do with your primary business. Exactly. You look around the table, gauging reactions. We've already started with the aid to Shantytown. What if we did more? What if people saw us as not just providing certain services, but as integral to the town's welfare? Mrs. Collins nods slowly. Thomas says half the town council privately visits establishments like this. They'd have a harder time voting to destroy something that the community openly values. Sadie studies you with new interest. It's a long shot, Boston, changing people's minds about women like us. It goes against everything they've been taught. Maybe, you concede. But what have we got to lose by trying? A ghost of a smile touches her lips. Not a damn thing. She looks around the table. All right, Boston, you've got our attention. Tell us more about this plan of yours. And so, in the quiet saloon with night settling over Silver Creek, you begin to outline a strategy, not just for survival, but for transformation, for proving that even on the harsh frontier, where life is cheap and mercy scarce, the women's society dismisses as soiled doves, might yet build something that even the likes of Holcomb cannot easily tear down. The morning sun streams through your window, catching dust motes in golden beams. 4 weeks since Holcomb's railroad meeting, 4 weeks of the most exhausting, exhilarating work you've ever done. You sit up, muscles aching pleasantly from yesterday's labour. Your straw mattress no longer feels strange. It's simply your bed now. The small room with its uneven floorboards and patched wallpaper is home, at least for the moment. On the washstand sits a copy of the Silver Creek Sentinel, the town's weekly newspaper. The headline still makes you smile. Saloon women lead effort to establish town's first hospital. The article beneath, penned by the surprisingly progressive editor, details how the ladies of the East End establishments have raised funds, secured a building, and arranged for a doctor from Denver to visit monthly. It mentions Sadie by name, a respectability she'd never been granted in print before, and quotes several miners' wives on the importance of proper medical care in a frontier community. What it doesn't mention is that the building was a dilapidated storage shed behind the general store until you and the other girls spent 2 weeks cleaning, repairing, and furnishing it, or that the funds came primarily from your own earnings, with Sadie matching every dollar contributed, or that the doctor from Denver is actually Pearl's brother-in-law, who agreed to help after she wrote explaining the situation. Small omissions in service of the larger goal, showing Silver Creek that the women of the brothel are more than soiled doves. They're community builders, problem solvers, human beings with skills beyond the bedroom. The hospital is just one initiative in what Sadie now jokingly calls the Respectability Campaign. There's also the twice-weekly school lessons for shantytown children taught by you and Charlotte in the saloon during closed hours, the emergency fund for injured miners administered jointly by Sadie and Mrs. Collins, the sewing circle that produces clothes for the poorest families organised by Maggie and, surprisingly, Mrs. Holcomb herself, who proved more pragmatic than her husband once she saw which way the wind was blowing. It's working, slowly but surely. You see it in the nods of acknowledgement from townspeople who would have crossed the street to avoid you a month ago, in the surprisingly large turnout for the hospital opening ceremony, in the way Sheriff Parker now consults Sadie on community matters openly, not just in private. Silver Creek is changing, not in the way Holcomb envisioned, but changing nonetheless. A knock at your door interrupts your musing. It's Pearl, already dressed for the day, her face bright with excitement. Town council meeting starting in an hour, she reminds you. Sadie wants everyone downstairs for breakfast first. You nod, suddenly nervous. Today, the council votes on Holcomb's proposed ordinance to restrict businesses of ill repute to the far south end of town, effectively forcing the saloon and brothel to relocate or close. After weeks of community organising, the vote is expected to be close. I'll be right down, you promise, reaching for your clothes. You choose your outfit carefully, the simple blue dress you wear for teaching, hair pulled back modestly, minimal rouge, the look of a respectable woman or as close as someone in your position can manage. Today is about presenting yourselves as valuable community members, not as painted ladies selling pleasure. Downstairs, the saloon has been transformed into a meeting space. The usual liquor and cards are nowhere to be seen, replaced by maps of Silver Creek, copies of proposed ordinances, and stacks of the petition signed by over 200 residents opposing Holcomb's plan. Sadie sits at the central table, with Edward, Mrs. Collins, and Mr. Jenkins from the hotel, reviewing strategy one final time. The other girls are gathered around the breakfast table, a nervous energy pervading the room. This vote affects all of you, determining whether you can continue the lives you've built here or be forced to start over elsewhere. Boston, Sadie calls as you enter. Just in time, we've had news. You join them at the table, accepting the coffee Maggie presses into your hands. Good or bad? Bit of both, Edward says, sliding a paper toward you. Holcomb's revised his proposal, no longer pushing to relocate all establishments immediately, but instead imposing new regulations and fees. You scan the document quickly. The new ordinance would require monthly health inspections at the establishment's expense, restricted operating hours, and licensing fees 3 times the current rate. Not an outright ban, but a financial stranglehold that would accomplish the same goal more slowly. He's trying to appear reasonable while still putting us out of business, Sadie explains. Harder to argue against public health measures than outright banishment. But we've prepared for this, Mrs. Collins reminds her. The petition, the economic impact statement. Thomas says at least 3 council members are wavering. Edward nods, and the hospital has changed some minds. It's harder to paint you all as a menace to public health when you're providing the only medical care in town. You're struck again by the unlikely alliance you formed. A brothel madam, a miner's wife, a bookshop owner, and you, the Boston shopkeeper's wife turned soiled dove. People from different worlds united against Holcomb's vision of progress that benefits only the wealthy and connected. What about Mayor Wilson, you ask? remembering the quiet, pragmatic man who's shown surprising resistance to Holcomb's plans. Still on the fence, Sadie says, but he's practical above all. If we can convince him that keeping us in business serves the town better than Holcomb's alternatives, then we need to focus on the economic argument, you conclude. The taxes we generate, the miners we keep in town who might otherwise travel to larger cities for entertainment, the ancillary businesses that benefit from traffic to this end of Main Street. Edward smiles at your analysis. Exactly what I was thinking. The moral argument won't sway Wilson, but the financial one might. Sadie checks the clock on the wall. Almost time. Everyone know their roles? General nods around the table. Good. Remember, we're respectable businesswomen concerned about our community, not those women from the brothel. Carry yourselves accordingly. As you prepare to leave, Charlotte appears at your elbow, unusually serious. You really think this will work? That they'll listen to us? You wish you could offer certainty, but the truth is more complicated. They'll listen to our allies. Edward, Mrs. Collins, the miners who signed the petition, and maybe, if we're lucky, they'll start to see us differently because of who stands with us. She nods, seemingly satisfied with your honesty. Well, if it all goes to hell, there's always California. I hear San Francisco has higher-class establishments anyway. Her gallows humour breaks the tension, and you find yourself laughing as you join the procession to the town hall. Delegation of unlikely activists fighting for their place in the changing frontier. The town hall is already crowded when you arrive. Miners fresh from night shift, still in work clothes, shopkeepers who've closed for the morning, ranchers from outlying areas, and a surprising number of women, including several from Shantytown whose children attend your impromptu school. Holcomb stands near the front with his supporters, primarily business owners from the West End and their wives, all dressed in their Sunday best despite it being Tuesday. His expression darkens when he spots your group entering, particularly when several miners call greetings to Sadie and the girls. Mayor Wilson calls the meeting to order, his weathered face betraying nothing of his thoughts. First item of business, Ordinance 28, regarding regulation of establishments of entertainment and leisure in Silver Creek. Mr. Holcomb will present the proposal. Holcomb steps forward, cutting an impressive figure in his tailored suit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As you know, Silver Creek stands at a crossroads. The arrival of the railroad next month brings unprecedented opportunity for growth and prosperity. But to attract the right kind of investment, respectable businesses, families looking to settle, we must address certain elements of our town that reflect its rougher beginnings. He continues for several minutes, his speech well-rehearsed and persuasive. The railroad means progress. Progress requires respectability. Respectability means controlling vice. It's a compelling narrative, especially when paired with promises of new jobs, increased property values, and modern amenities. When he finishes, Mayor Wilson calls for opposing viewpoints. Edward rises first, presenting the economic argument you discussed, complete with figures on tax revenue, employment, and ancillary benefits to other businesses. He's followed by Mrs. Collins, who speaks passionately about the medical care now available to Shantytown families because of the Brothel Women's Initiative. Then something unexpected happens. A miner named Jackson, a regular customer you recognize, stands to speak. My boy would have died last winter if not for Miss Sadie sending for a real doctor when he got the fever, he says, his voice rough with emotion. Doc Harris did what he could, but he said himself the specialist from Denver saved my Tommy's life, and who paid for that doctor? The ladies everyone's so quick to call immoral. He looks around the room defiantly. Seems to me there's different kinds of morality. One that's about appearances, and one that's about helping your neighbour when they're down. A murmur of agreement runs through the crowd. Another man stands, the blacksmith whose wife benefits from the sewing circle, then another, a shopkeeper whose business adjoins the saloon and benefits from its customer traffic. One by one, ordinary citizens of Silver Creek rise to defend the brothel, not as a necessary evil, but as a community institution that has evolved beyond its original purpose. They speak of the school lessons for children who would otherwise go uneducated, of the emergency fund that keeps families from starving when mines close temporarily, of the sense of community fostered by women society would prefer to ignore. You watch Holcomb's face as the testimony continues, seeing his confidence falter as he realizes he's miscalculated. He viewed the brothel as an easy target, a vice that respectable citizens would eagerly sacrifice on the altar of progress. Instead, he's facing a community that has begun to recognize the humanity and value of its most marginalized members. When the public comment period ends, Mayor Wilson calls for a brief recess before the vote. In the corridor outside the meeting room, Sadie gathers your group. "It's going well," she says cautiously. "Better than I expected, but Holcomb still has leverage with some council members. Don't celebrate yet." You nod, trying to temper your own hopes. The community support is encouraging, but ultimately the decision rests with 7 men on the town council, most of whom have ties to Holcomb through business or social connections. As you wait, Edward appears at your side. "Whatever happens," he says quietly, "you should be proud of what you've accomplished. The town sees you differently now, all of you." That was always the real goal, you admit. Not just saving the brothel, but changing how people view women like us, showing that we're human beings with value beyond what men pay for. He studies your face. "You've changed too, you know. When I first met you, you were focused only on surviving, on escaping. Now you're building something." His observation strikes a chord. You have changed in ways you're only beginning to recognize. The desperate woman who arrived in Silver Creek with nothing but shame and determination has become something else. A teacher, an organizer, a voice for those society would prefer to silence. "Martha," Edward begins, then hesitates. "Eleanor." The use of your real name, which you shared with him during one of your quiet reading sessions, sends a jolt through you. "When this is over, whatever the outcome, I'd like to talk about the future, your future." Before you can respond, the bell rings, signaling the council's return. You rejoin the others, Edward's words echoing in your mind. The future, something you've avoided thinking about beyond the immediate goal of survival. Back in the meeting room, Mayor Wilson calls for the vote on Ordinance 28. The tension is palpable as each council member states their position. Jenkins votes against. As expected, his hotel benefits from proximity to the saloon. Thompson votes for. His wife is president of the Ladies' Aid Society and a staunch Holcomb supporter. Monroe hesitates, then votes against. His store supplies goods to the brothel at a premium. Davis votes for. He owns property on the West End that would increase in value under Holcomb's plan. Collins votes against, true to his wife's influence. Parker, the final regular member, votes for, tied to Holcomb through mining investments. 3 for, 3 against. All eyes turn to Mayor Wilson, whose vote will break the tie. Wilson clears his throat, looking uncomfortable with the spotlight. "Before I cast my vote, I'd like to propose an amendment to the ordinance." Holcomb frowns, clearly caught off guard. The health and safety regulations are reasonable, Wilson continues. Regular medical inspections, fire safety requirements, license fees commensurate with other businesses of similar size. But the restriction on location strikes me as unnecessary given the establishment's efforts toward community improvement. He's offering a compromise, you realize. Regulation without relocation, legitimacy with oversight. I move to amend Ordinance 28 to remove the location restriction and reduce the proposed licensing fees to match the current rate plus 20% for the additional inspections. The Council votes on the amendment, 4-2 in favour, with only Thompson and Davis opposed. Then, on the amended ordinance, 5-1, with only Thompson maintaining his objection. It's a victory, albeit a qualified one. The brothel can remain where it is, integrated into the community rather than pushed to its margins. The increased regulation brings challenges, but also a kind of legitimacy previously denied, no longer operating in legal shadows, but as a recognised, if still controversial, business. Holcomb's face is a study in controlled fury as Mayor Wilson closes the meeting. He catches your eye across the room, his gaze promising that this battle may be over, but the war continues. Then he turns and leaves, his supporters trailing behind. The celebration begins immediately. Handshakes, congratulations, plans for the future. Sadie accepts it all with dignified gratitude, every inch the respectable businesswoman she's fought to be recognized as. The other girls are less restrained, their relief palpable after weeks of uncertainty. You find yourself surrounded by well-wishers, Mrs. Collins, the miners and their wives, even Sheriff Parker, who offers a gruff, well done, before returning to his duties. In the midst of it all, you catch sight of a small figure at the back of the room, Becky, the little girl from Shantytown, watching with wide eyes as history unfolds. Later, after the crowd disperses, you sit with Sadie on the saloon's back porch, sharing a rare moment of quiet reflection. The autumn air is crisp, hinting at the winter to come. Silver Creek spreads before you, its rough-hewn buildings catching the late afternoon light. "We did it," you say, still slightly disbelieving. "Part of it," Sadie corrects, ever practical. "Holcomb won't give up so easily, and the railroad will still change things, whether we like it or not, but we've bought time, and more importantly, respect." You nod, understanding the significance. In a world where women have precious few rights and even fewer opportunities, respect is currency more valuable than gold. "What happens now?" you ask. "We adapt, always have." She glances at you, "though I suspect your plans might be changing." You think of Edward, of his mention of the future, of the teaching you've begun to enjoy, the sense of purpose you've found beyond mere survival. "Maybe, I don't know yet." "You should talk to him," Sadie says, surprisingly gentle. "Hayes is a good man, respects you, sees you as more than just a whore you supply." When she trails off, she snorts. "I was going to say a pretty face, but yes, that too." Her expression grows serious. "Men like that are rare, Boston, especially out here." You know she's right, but the path forward isn't clear. "What about you? The others?" "We'll be fine." She looks out over the town, her gaze distant. "I've been thinking about expanding, not just the saloon and rooms, but the hospital. Maybe a proper school building instead of using the bar during off hours. Silver Creek's growing, might as well grow with it, shape it in our own way." The vision surprises you. Not just survival, but ambition. Not just acceptance of circumstances, but active creation of something new. It's inspiring, and for a moment you allow yourself to imagine being part of it. Not forever, perhaps, but for now, for the next chapter. "I'd like to help," you hear yourself say. "With the school, at least." Sadie smiles, a rare, genuine expression. "Thought you might. You've got a knack for it." She stands, straightening her skirt. Think about Hayes's offer, whatever it is, but know there's a place for you here too, if you want it, not just upstairs, but in whatever we build next. The choice hangs before you, not the stark decision between survival and death that brought you to Silver Creek, but something more nuanced, multiple paths, each with its own possibilities. That night, as you prepare for sleep in your small room, you find yourself taking stock. 3 months in Silver Creek, 3 months that have transformed you from a desperate, ashamed runaway to, what? A teacher? An advocate? A woman who helped change a town's understanding of what fallen women can be. All of those things, you realize. And something more fundamental, a person who has reclaimed her sense of worth beyond what men are willing to pay for her body. You still go upstairs with customers, that reality hasn't changed, but fewer now as your teaching duties expand, and with a different understanding of what the transaction means. Not a fall from grace, but a practical exchange in a world where women's options are painfully limited. Not something to be proud of, perhaps, but not something that defines your entire worth either. Outside your window, Silver Creek settles into evening rhythms, lamps lit in windows, the murmur of conversation from the saloon below, the distant whistle of a train miles away, but drawing closer with each passing day. Change is coming, as it always does on the frontier. But for the first time since you arrived, you face that change not with fear, but with a cautious hope. You think of Edward, of his gentle respect and shared love of books, of Sadie's ambitious plans for the brothel's evolution, of Pearl's children in Denver who might someday reunite with their mother in a town that sees her as more than her profession. No perfect choices, no fairy tale endings, just human beings doing their best to build something meaningful in a harsh and unforgiving land, finding connection and purpose where society said none should exist, rewriting the rules of what women, even soiled doves, can be in the Wild West. As sleep begins to claim you, you realize that the story of the brothel that built Silver Creek is still being written, and against all odds, you've become not just a character in that story, but one of its authors. Your last thought before drifting off is not of Boston or the life you left behind, but of tomorrow, of lessons to plan, of Edward's promised conversation, of Sadie's vision for the future, of all the unexpected ways that women dismissed as merchandise have shaped this frontier town, and will continue to shape it long after the likes of Holcomb have been forgotten. In your cozy bed, far from where you began but exactly where you need to be right